Okay. So another thing didn't learn in law school is how long bodies could stay in the ward, difference between funeral and cremation. All this new information, by the way, I'd be remiss. So we have a great relationship with Peace Aging, and with Trish, who I love dearly, just brought on a new partner, and I want to go by Vanda to say a couple of words. Okay, Amanda's not going to say a couple of words because I have the microphone, and I was invited to Trish's birthday party, not birthday party, her 20th anniversary celebration. I was also invited to the birthday party, and I get there, and Amanda comes up to me as I walk in, goes, "Do you mind saying a couple of words about Trish in her 20th anniversary?" I said, "Could you give me a couple of minutes to prepare? Not just have my only button to make your heart flutter for a second." Did it work? Yeah. Good. That's Amanda, everybody. There's always payback. I should have let you tell me she has the coolest Australian accent. And ironically, she's from Australia. And actually tracks. Okay, so funerals going on from, you know, interesting things to kind of oddities. I didn't know what I didn't know until I put on a seminar. I think it was with Mary Time with the Bap. He did a seminar for the Passaic County Bar. I don't know, 15, 14 years ago. And I remember we invited a funeral director and said, "Okay, this sounds like an interesting topic for the bar." So I listen to the funeral directors. This is kind of the worst subject in the world. It turned out to be the coolest subject because there were so many mistakes and issues and conflicts that come up that we don't even know could come up. And the issue was somehow learning about who has the right to decide whether a person is going to be cremated or buried. And there's a thing called a funeral disposition agent. And boy, did I learn the hard way what a funeral disposition agent was when it was an estranged child. And in order to cremate somebody, and if there is no funeral agent named, then you needed the majority of the children. But how do you get the majority of the children if you don't know where one of the children is? It just created this whole situation, which was crazy. You can go on, followed by a situation with two half sisters that were debating whether their fathers should be cremated or buried, and they had different feelings about what his disposition should be. So the one thing they agreed on is to keep them in a freezer at the funeral, for, I think it was 3 months, while they decided to fight. How was remain should be on. So this is the type of stuff that we see in our practice, laying out houses, funerals, probate. So with that, I would like to bring up and invite our guests. We have Keri-Lozito and Austin Bremner. And they're going to share some of their experiences. The life and food on that.
Morning. Yeah. Morning again. I just met Austin this morning. I didn't know it was my guy. All right. So, my name is Keri-Lozito. I'm the owner of Keri-Lozito Funeral Home in Lincoln Park, New Jersey. I've been a licensed funeral director since 1987, and I've seen it all. To expand on what Lynn was saying earlier, there's been some homes I've been in. We had looked for where the body was. There was so much stuff in the home for years and years and years, and people collecting things. And we get in the car afterwards, and they said, "We get back to the funeral home, we're going to burn our clothes." Because that's how bad some of these homes are. All right, so, licensed funeral director, stayed in Madrid since 1987. I've owned my own business since 1998. I had 2 funeral homes for a while. One now was a dispensary. Most people have to sure that. Hillwood, New Jersey, you can come there. It was formerly my funeral. All right, so we're talking about today about what a funeral agent is. Yeah, everybody here is probably helmet care, their attorneys, etc. But I got to tell you, when this first law came into effect, there were a lot of attorneys that had no idea where it was. And a lot of them were confused that who has the right to control. That's what it's called. It's called a right to control after someone passes away. Legally, it goes to the spouse or domestic partner, all the adult children, not just one. Then from there, it goes to parents, and then from there, it goes to siblings, and then other relatives that can fall in line. Now, today's complex world that we live in, we have blended marriages, we have all crazy different situations. It becomes very, very difficult to determine who has the right to control someone after they pass away. Unfortunately, power of attorney, both people come in and say, I have power of attorney from their mother. I said, well, fortunately, don't in New York, that ended, she passed away. Well, now I'm the executor. Okay, that's fine. You have 4 other siblings. They have the right to say what happens to your mother or father just as much as you do. So they came up with this appointing someone a funeral agent. A funeral agent basically could be a codicil to a will that is already in effect. You can add it, or you can. We have forms at the funeral home where we actually appoint someone funeral agent right at the funeral. And a lot of times when people come in and they pre-arrange it with us, they say to us, I don't get along with my one son, I don't get along with my daughter, and I know you're Star Hill, they're not going to do what I want. I said, well, that's very simple. We're going to do over funeral agent. It can be anybody. It can be your neighbor. It can be anybody except an employee of the funeral. Anybody that can't be us, it can't be anybody else. So it's a simple form. It basically gives the person the right to control someone's wishes. We find that more and more people are making pre-arrangements tag to use New Jersey Premium Trust Fund. I'm sure some of you are very familiar with that. And we try to, we want to know who's going to be in charge of the person that's passed away. And they have no way. There's a lot of people out there that have to know. You'd be surprised how many people have no family, nobody. So they said, listen, they have a close friend or somebody. They come in and they appoint them recommendation. And it affects a lot today with the rate of cremation today is so very, very high. When I first started doing this is no lie. The funeral home I worked in Paterson, New Jersey, we probably did about 100 plus funerals a year. If we did 3 cremations a year, honestly, good point. We're Italian funeral. Well, guess what? Not anymore. It's up to almost 60% in the state of New Jersey. 60% cremation. Okay, that's it. We got to remember, when you cremate someone, that's forever. It's forever and ever and ever. You can't change it. Once it's done, it's done. So, and we need the next of kin, all the next of kin to agree on it. So now you have 5 children, so 3 have to agree. Well, sometimes they all don't agree. Now, if you had a funeral agent, maybe one of those children, your funeral agent, you wouldn't have any issues. That person's in charge, whether you like it or not, your brother, your sister, your cousin, they're in charge. They get to say what happens. So I had a situation, telling you a story about it. It's actually a very famous person. I won't say who it is because I rule about confidentiality. He was at a nursing home in Allendale, New Jersey. He passed away in the middle of the night. He had a son and he had a daughter. They didn't talk. The guy was very wealthy. He had a lot of property in New York City, and he died. The funeral home they originally called said they knew there was two siblings. They said, we're not going to do it. If neither one could agree. So the supervisor comes in at 7 o'clock in the morning, and she poorly, you have to know. It's a joke. We do the funeral. We can't be there. We have both refrigerations. Just so you know, most nursing homes do not have refrigeration. They do not. So we have to go right away, pick them up. So we go to pick them up. I said, give me the daughter's phone number, let me call. So I said, do I have your information to go pick up her father? She said, yes. I said, give me your brother's phone number with 12 of them. She says, well, I don't really, I'll see what I can do. Personally, I said, let me talk to him, maybe I can work something out. So I go to the nurse home, figure about bring it back to my care. By the time this is like 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, by 10 o'clock that morning, same morning, the daughter calls me. She says, I talked to my father's attorney. It's not a dude. He doesn't want to be cremated because he had appointed a funeral agent. He did it. So he was to be buried in the cemetery outside Belmont. three spackers get to say, held on to work. And it turned out to be very expensive funeral. So I went for the direct cremation to this elaborate funeral, the soft mahogany casket and everything else. So it does, if you have that funeral they keep in place, the other thing too is when you create these documents, do not lose, as I said earlier, do not lose these documents because we don't see it. There's nothing we can do for it. There's nothing we can do. So make sure you have an attorney, you do the will, have CASA, and you do see it, right? So there's a couple other things that we talked about. Talked about the New Jersey Authority with ex-kid, spouse, etc., etc. These are all things that make our job easier, make for less conflicts when a person must pass away. I can't tell you through years. On the side, I've been doing it 25 years. I'm a high school football official and a high school basketball official. So if you ever see me on football field on Yellow Street, I do this for fun. That's my fun. I deal with this nonsense during the week, and I set Friday and Saturday night. I go, we go that. My coach, but doesn't bother. Sometimes I feel like I want to go. You're a referee out in your aging conference. You can say, stop. Please stop throwing flag because these people, they fight, they argue about everything. But if you had that document pointing someone there, if you know Asian, there's no more arguing. That's it. Stomach over, and then we're good to go. So these are all things better.
Do you have to have that document, or can you appoint someone in your will and that makes the document unnecessary?
Yes, it's in your will. Now, the problem sometimes they don't read the will right way. It's supposed to define it. But you have the person who does this, the person whose will it is, should tell that person that you're my real agent. That's very important. It's a great question. Because if you don't, if it's not there, we don't know about it, and if I'll find a way, then we find that afterwards and it's too late. But just to get back to, has to be in your will. If it's in your will, the person should know. Also, when you come to the funeral home, you make for your agents to do that. We have to when we fill out, keep it in file. Right? Other things, like I said, the Sabi safety is very important. Don't lose it. Keep it in a safe place, and etc. That's the main side. As far as the cremation laws regulations go, COVID helped us. It helped us a lot. You used to have the signatures in person. Now we can do DocuSign, faxes, emails. So the way the world is today, all over the country, to Florida, to Chicago, California, we can contact them, get their information, and we could have them sign electronic. Helps a lot. In Lincoln Park, we have a nursing home there. It's called the Park Care Center. A lot of the residents there have no families. And then we do a little bit of research to try to locate kids. And sometimes we're pretty successful. They'll call us and say, "Can you do us a favor?" Legally, I'll really put myself out so they'll be turned in. If I go pick up a body, they didn't have permission. I'm really put myself out of it. They always stand by me. They said, we don't have any refrigeration. And we have to sometimes we have to get cremation authorization signed by someone who they lost contact with for years. It was their son. We find the son. See, the dad passed away. So what do you want me to do? I wanted to sign an authorization. I ain't paying for it. That's what I want to know. I ain't paying for it. But most of the people in there are on Medicaid and Medicaid covered their costs. So that helped a lot. COVID helped us with the signatures and firing for the authorizations.
Thank you, Joe. Joe, I think you covered it all. I'm not sure what I can add to that, but I'll come from a little different perspective from the community outreach sort of.
Yeah, quick question. Regarding funeral agents, how are they compensated?
They're not.
They're not?
Nope.
Because I think that executor make a certain percentage.
Not funeral agent. You are in charge of the now. That doesn't mean you have to pay for it if you're a funeral agent. That means you're just in charge of and making sure that the decedent's final wishes are carried out with the place.
Hey, let's hear Joe a big round of applause. like I said before, I'm going to come from a little different perspective because I'm neither a funeral director or attorney. Good morning, everyone. I'm grateful to be a part of this conversation today, and I wanted to start be clear and staying in my lane. That's what I was just doing. I'm here to give legal advice and return the funeral designation the way the attorney put, and I'm certainly not speaking in his shoes as a funeral director. My perspective comes from the funeral home and community outreach perspective. I serve as community outreach liaison for a group of family-owned funeral homes and the statewide cremation service. A big part of my work, education, relationship building, and helping move important end of life family conversations upstream before families are at crisis. And that upstream piece is really, really important. Funeral service is a part of the continuum of care, and families do not stop needing support when medical care ends, when hospice care becomes involved, or when legal planning documents are signed. Healthcare, senior living, elder law, caregiving hospice, funeral and cremation planning, grief support, final wishes are all connected. And first, if it's a question for everyone, a quick show of hands. Has anyone heard of funeral service being part of the continuum of care before? All right. Well, I'm in the right place then. I think someone has. I saw a hand come back there. And from a funeral home perspective, we also see what happens when there's not enough play. I think Joe did a great job of already some really good examples. And sometimes wishes we're talking about but never documented. Sometimes family members are unsure who actually has the authority. Sometimes in person, who do the wishes is not the legal next of kin, as it's up one to deal with. Because sometimes everyone cares deeply, but they just disagree. And that's why tools like funeral agent designation matter so much. To me, it's not just paperwork, it's a clarity tool. It helps answer one very practical question. Who has the authority to carry out this person's funeral or cremation wishes? That's really what we're talking about. And that's the lens of brief today. Funeral home perspective, community education, prevention, and how we bring this important conversation upstream where it do the most good. And I'll close by saying this. To be the funeral agent designation is not just the legal form. It's a funeral document. It's not just the legal form or funeral document. It's a piece of fine tool. Helps answer the question that becomes very core when someone dies. Who has the authority to carry out my funeral or cremation wishes? So that matters because grief is hard enough, and families should not have to guess, argue, or search for clarity at the exact moment they're already overwhelmed. When we help move these conversations upstream, we're helping families prepare better. We're helping individuals protect their wishes. We're helping professionals connect court cases up the continuum of care. We're helping funeral homes serve families with more clarity and less conflict. And while the funeral agent designation does not take away grief, but it can remove confusion. It can reduce stress, and it can get the family one less hard to figure out on what is already one of the hardest days of their life. And if you work with families in healthcare, senior care, hospice, elder law, caregiving, social work, or a funeral service, this conversation is worth knowing about. And you don't have to be the expert if you're not a funeral director or an attorney, but you can be the person who recognizes when a family may benefit from the conversation. He knows where to look the next. And sometimes that simple awareness can make a very difficult night a little smoother for everyone involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill and Austin. I don't know, did anybody else see the irony in a funeral director saying that COVID is the best thing that ever happened? I don't know.
Everything else was horrible. It's a horrible, horrible time in my life. I never slept for. I don't want to tell you the numbers that we did. It was insane. It was literal. I can show you. I took pictures of all the caskets lined up. And I had one time that had 15 caskets lined up because we couldn't get burials. It was horrible. I would never want to relive those days again. Ever. It's horrible.
Well, you bring a room down
Hey, everybody said, look at all the money we have. Because a lot of work.
Question? I show a question. Yeah. So question, let's say family, single passes away, the family has limited liquidity right away because again, the assets are designed to go through probate or like there's little petty life insurance, qualified assets that need to have all that stuff. Is there any sort of guidelines in New Jersey that the funeral home should give like family 30 days or show a pending claim? Or sometimes we use the pressure put on families.
We as field directors, are not supposed to hold up funerals for lack of payment. Okay. However, there are expenses that are not ours. Grave openings. Most grave openings in North Jersey, this part of the country, are somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000. That's just to open the grave. So it has nothing to do with us. Churches, etc., they're getting probably $700, $800 at the mass. So right there, you're looking at almost $4,000. It's not my money. So they have to come up with something. I use a company out in Alabama. They used to be in Virginia, down in Alabama. They are a factory company. They pay my insurance claims right away. They take 4%, and that's up to each funeral home whether they want to pass that along with their family. I choose not to. I eat the 4%, just like if you came with a credit card, you're on a 3.5%, 2%, whatever it is. I choose not to. I feel that I'm not going to penalize you. I know I'm going to get paid within days. Usually, before the funeral even happens, they wire the money in my account. So that's the question. But legally, we can't hold up the funeral.
Does that the company net for the grave opening?
They would.
Yeah, they would.
Yeah, if it's included, if there's enough there, they have to go.
All right. Like,
actually, what's best sort of offset? Different. Do you have connections to service or pro-sexuous houses in terms of some of the cores that go out?
Yes, absolutely. That is one of the main areas in the professional arena that in a continuum of care that we work with most closely for obvious reasons. But a big part of what we'll do in service, share things like the funeral agent designation. We try to encourage them to talk about it before the person's in hospice, obviously, to avoid pressurized, emotional decision making when things are. You just really want to spend time with them at that point. So, but yes, hospice is certainly on the forefront of our minds and working with making sure they're repaired. Great question. Anyone else?
Well, thank
you.
What do you want to talk about here? It inevitably seems to always get the most response and the most questions. So obviously it affects everybody. We'll get early.